Hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know that we are covering the financial system and basically what we had started the discussion over the term which we call as a foreign investments. Okay. And we had seen that there are the three types of the foreign investments starting with the foreign direct investments also known as FDI, foreign institutional investments also known as FII, and the foreign portfolio investments also known as FPI. Okay, these are the three types of the, you can say, the foreign investments. All right, and since last few lectures we have been talking about the FDI and we had seen the permissible limits and the sectoral caps along with the approval route, means automatic or the common. In the previous lecture, I hope that you have revised the previous lecture in the well enough manner before you have come for this lecture. Okay, so in the previous lecture basically we had seen the permissible sectors in which the FDI is allowed, and even we had seen the sectoral limit, and one thing also which means the approval route, right? That is what we have seen. So basically in this lecture we are first going to start the prohibited sectors, right? You could say that when we were discussing in the starting of this lecture about the FDI, I had told you one thing, that in some sectors the FDI is permitted, but in some sectors the FPI is prohibited, right? So we had seen the sectors in which the FDI is permitted. Now we are going to see the sectors in which the FDI is prohibited. Okay, so basically when we talk about the prohibited sectors, okay, so the first thing which you can see here is the activities and the sectors which are not open to the private sector investments like the atomic energy or the railway operations. All right, so here is you can say two things hidden in this line, right? First is the private sectors. Okay, so we could say that after the 1991, when in India we had brought the new economic policy, and in the new economic policy, as we had discussed, that basically we paved a way for the liberalization, privatization, and the globalization. Okay, so you could say on that era, basically what we were trying, that we were trying to attract more and more private investments as well as the foreign investments. Okay, but still there were the some sectors which we had preserved only for the public interaction and for the government's, you can say, interference, and these sectors are like the atomic energy or the railway operations. All right, so it is the first meaning that the private sector investments are generally not allowed in the railway operations and the atomic energies. Okay, first thing we had seen. What is the second hidden thing written here? Okay, basically mostly time in the news channels and you can say in some news journals you have seen that basically India has signed the MOU, which is also known as Memorandum of Understandings. Like India had signed a MOU with some countries, like if we talk about the United States of America, the deal of India, which is known as the Nuclear Treaty, and this is signed nearly about 2008. Okay, and this treaty is for which sector? Atomic sector. But was the perspective that basically India will get the American technology for the civil purposes in the field of nuclear and the clean energy, right? That was the thing. But if we talk about today's, then we had listen about the FDIs. Okay, like India had signed a MOU with some country and the country is investing in India. So if the country is investing in India, is that not a part of the FDI? Definitely it's a part of the FDI, right? But the FDI is not coming from any private player. That is the main thing. The FDI is coming from government to government deal. Okay, that's why it is the first thing. Okay, and even if we talk about the railways, like most of you, if you're living in the NCR or you can say in some metropolitan cities, then must you have been encountered with the metro in once in your lifetime, right? So if we talk about the metros are the part of the railways, right? And these are the urban railways. Okay, so if you ever traveled in the metro, and if you look at the metro compartment, then you must have seen the private entity's name, right? And these private entities are the one which had built that particular compartment. So you could say that metros are under the government, but the compartments and you can say the body of the metro has been made by the private players. So that deal must be in between the government and the private, right? It is a semi-true. Why? Because generally, whenever the government is hiring the private players from outside, so generally the government talks with the government of that country from which the private players belongs to. And then this deal is basically between government to government, and the private player then got the orders from its respective government, not from the Indian government. Okay, so remember this thing, that basically these deals are basically handled on the government to government basis, not on the private sector investments. Thereafter, the real estate businesses or construction of the farmhouses. Basically, if we talk about the real estate or the construction of the farmhouses, these are basically belongs to the housing sector. Okay, and when we talk about the vast country like India, then India is already having housing problems, right? Like most Indians even do not own their own houses, right? They are living on rents. Okay, so India is already facing the housing problems. So basically, the government try to maintain the policy for the welfare of both. It means that for developers and for buyers. All right. For developers, you could say that the government having different subsidies, okay, in taxation, in purchase of raw material, even in the constructions. For buyer point of view, the government also provide the easy loans so that the buyer could purchase the house, and even the FDI is not permitted. FDI is not permitted. Why? What is the reason? Because if we talk about it, then you could say if the housing sector valuation is nearly about 10,000. Okay, so the things, the policies, the prices, all will be decided as per the present valuation. But if the foreign currency and you can say the foreign direct investment influx is allowed in this 10,000 crores, so what will happen? The prices will be goes high. It means that this valuation might be reach 40,000 crores. So what is happening here? This is high or rapid valuation. Okay, and this will impact the buyers, right? Because the market is growing tremendously, but only in the valuation, not in the affordability, right? That is the main reason why the real estate businesses or the construction farmhouses are not included in the FDI permissible sectors. Thereafter, trading in the transferable development rights, TDRS. So what are TDRS? Basically, we are required to understand them. Okay. So basically, if we talk about TDR, or you can say transferable development rights, then basically you could say that the development rights of one property could be set to another property by the agreement of both the owners. Okay, so development rights of one property could be sent to the another property by the agreement of both the owners. Remember, always and mostly done by those property owners who own restrictive properties. Okay, for example, suppose when we talk about the large metropolitan cities, okay, so these cities are basically, you can say, often called as a planned cities, right? There are well-defined sectors, well-defined roads, and well-defined things. Okay, and these cities are often having the concept of development rights. Right? Suppose if you having the property here, so whatever way you are making the property, you are required to obtain the development rights from the municipal corporations. All right, these are known as the development rights. So here, what is the condition? That suppose if you are the owner and you having your 4-story building. Okay, here I am having my 2-story building. All right, so basically suppose the city in which we are living in having the restrictions that only 4-story development rights permissible. All right, so it means that if you have reached your limit of 4-story, then you are not supposed to modify it further. Okay, but if we come to my property, I have only built 2-story. It means that I am free to make 2 more story. Okay, but here comes the this condition: own a restrictive property. What is the meaning of restrictive property? Restrictive property means that suppose this property is near some historical places, or you can say it's a historical places by itself, and it is nearby some area which is sensitive for the national security. Okay, so in such a scenario, what will happen? That I will not have the permission to build 2 more story on this, but I am holding the rights. Okay, so what will be happen? That we will sign a deal. Okay, as per the deal, you will give me the money and I will hand over my property rights to you. Okay, property development rights. It means that I will get the money from you and my rights will be granted to you. So now you having the permission for 2 more floors so that you could build 2 more floors. Only the 4-story development is allowed and you had used it. But then you had obtained the rights from someone else so that now you are permitted to build it. So what is the mutual benefit for both of us? Like, without selling my property or without anything done to my property, I have received the money. Okay, and you have received the property development rights, right? To further develop your property. Okay, so these are known as the TDR, transferable development rights. Okay, the one who is restricted and not allowed to develop the property maybe sell his rights to someone who is looking for further development in his property but has reached the maximum limit of development, right? So why the FDI is prohibited in these sectors? Because suppose if this person is there, okay, so this person will have the limited capital, right? And we could say that that person is basically some entity, or you can say some organization. Okay, so everyone has a limited capital. But if the FDI comes to his capital or comes to his property, all right, then what will happen? He will use this capital again and again and will modify the property further, which could be harmful for the people who will live in here. Okay, because if there are the restrictions will have some reasons. Okay, to prevent this kind of instability, the TDRs are there, which is known as a transferable development rights. Thereafter, another sectors is the Nidhi company. So what are the Nidhi companies? So basically you could say that the Nidhi companies are the small money pooling companies invest in, you can say, favor of group members time to time. It means that suppose there are 10 people, okay, who merged their money together and formed a company called the XYZ. So the XYZ will be the Nidhi company because here the 10 people have utilized their savings and made a company. So this XYZ will grant the loans, okay, then make the investments into these 10 peoples for their group's members benefits. Okay, that is called the Nidhi company. And here is one thing. What is that? That Nidhi companies are basically debarred from the FDI. Okay, it means that these 10 peoples and their company is not allowed to attain any FDI from anyone. Got it? So what's the reason for it? Basically, the government is trying to protect the Nidhi. Like you can say, whenever, as we had discussed, whenever there will be a FDI, then there always must be some deal, right? So maybe the foreign player, which is much more stronger than the XYZ, if the foreign player acquires the stakes and ownership in the XYZ, then there are chances that the foreign player will try to run this company in that way, or you can say will try to commercialize the operation in its own favor. Okay, and due to this, might be the rights of these 10 peoples may be affected. Okay, so that is the, you can say, sole reason why the Nidhi companies are generally not allowed to accept the FDIs from someone. Okay, so that they could be much more focused to serve the need of their people rather than being commercialized and focused on the commercialization. Okay, so basically, if we talk about the if we talk about the chit funds. So the question is, what is a chit funds? So chit fund is the money pooling scheme by an individuals where they not submit, just make it deposit, where they deposit sum of money time to time and periodically the lottery will be drawn amongst the group members, and winner will get the entire amount. Okay, so basically chit funds are the money pooling schemes where the individuals deposit the sum of money time to time, and periodically the lottery will be drawn amongst the group members and the winner will get the entire amount. For example, suppose there are 10 people, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. These are the 10 members and each of them submit rupees 2000 into 10. It means that total amount is 20,000. So how much amount they have pooled? They have pooled 20,000. So what will happen? After certain period of time, the lottery will be drawn. And suppose in lottery, there was a name of F and F is the winner. So what will happen? This 20,000 will be given to F. All right. So that's the thing. So this is the chit funds. Got it? I hope that you will be able to understand this. And chit funds are basically controlled through the Central Act of Chit Funds Acts 1982. All right. So this is the thing. And remember, the chit funds companies are also not allowed to intake the FDI from anyone. Why? The same reason as the reason for the Nidhi. Okay. Thereafter, the gambling and the betting, including casinos, etc. Obviously, these are not allowed to take the, you can say the FDI. Thereafter, the lottery business, including the government, the pirate lottery, online lottery, etc. These areas are not allowed to take FDI. Okay, because it is the, you can say this is the luck-based investments. These are the luck-based investments. That's why it is the, you can say the government policies to stop these areas. So if the FDI will brought to them, it means the huge funding will be come to them. So there are the huge chances that these business will grow and more people will be damaged from these areas. Thereafter, the manufacturing of cigars, cigarillos, tobacco substitutes, caligros, etc. Okay. So students, basically in this lecture, we had done with the FDI. In the next lecture, we will start with the FII. Till then, just revise all the facts and figures which we have discussed in this lecture and be ready for the another lecture. With this note, let's end this lecture, and what we say, thank you.